The deal of blood. Hunger. The ceiling fan buzzed overhead, barely stirring the heavy air inside the one-bedroom flat. Taha lay on the stained mattress, staring at a crack in the plaster. His phone blinked beside him. Balance, Rs 23. He hadn't eaten in 12 hours. Not since the bun kebab he shared with 2 other men outside the labor market. Jobs were scarce. Even day work had dried up. Karachi was cruel in July. His fingers trembled as he opened a message from his landlord. Last warning. Pay rent by Friday or you're out. Taha laughed under his breath. A dry, hollow sound. Rent. He couldn't even afford water. He pulled his shirt tighter over his thin frame and sat up. The room swayed. Hunger had become a second skin. That night, he walked out into the neon-washed streets, hoping for anything. A lucky break. A friend. A sign. Near Sadar, outside a closed garment shop, he saw a man in a black suit. Odd, far too well dressed for this part of town. The man stood perfectly still, holding an umbrella though there was no rain. As Taha walked past, the man turned. Taha Siddiqui. Taha froze. How do you know my name? The man smiled, eyes hidden behind dark glasses. We monitor the desperate. You qualify. Would you like to change your life tonight? Taha stepped back. You're a scammer. I have nothing. Exactly. Which means you have nothing to lose. He handed Taha a black card. No name. Just a red symbol, a circle with a teardrop inside. Come to this address. Midnight. Alone. Before Taha could ask, the man had vanished into the alley. At 11:57 p.m., Taha stood outside a crumbling colonial building in Old Clifton. The card had led him here. Every instinct screamed to run. But he stepped inside. The interior was pristine, black marble floors, gold trim, silence. A woman in white greeted him. Her eyes were pale gray. Welcome. You seek wealth. I seek survival. She nodded. The society gives, but it also takes. Sign, and your journey begins. She handed him a parchment and a fountain pen. He hesitated. What do you take? He asked. She only smiled. Only what you owe. Taha signed. The parchment burned to ash. He woke up in his flat. Something felt different. There was a suitcase at his feet. Inside, 2.5 million rupees in cash. His bank account now read, 0 rupees, and below that, debt, 1. No explanation. No instructions. Just a note. Spend freely. Repayment begins soon. Taha ran into the bathroom and splashed water on his face. Was this a dream? The money was real. Crisp. Smelled of metal. That day, he paid rent, bought food, gave some to a beggar without thinking. He felt alive. That night, he dreamed of a man hanging upside down, whispering his name in reverse. The next morning, Taha's neighbor was dead. Heart failure, they said. But Taha saw the same teardrop symbol on the old man's door. He ignored it. The money flowed. He bought clothes, a phone, applied for jobs with confidence. Interviews came easy. Smiles returned. But each night, the dreams grew darker. Screams from inside walls. Blood in mirrors. Eyes staring from drains. He checked his account, dead, 4. And one more message. Every gain demands loss. The balance must remain. Taha began to understand. He wasn't the only one paying the. Taha's world shifted with each passing day, but it was no longer about joy. It was about control, holding on to reality as it slipped through his fingers. The flat he once dreaded to return to now smelled of lavender diffusers and imported wood. His phone buzzed with messages from recruiters. Job offers flowed in. A BMW stood parked outside. But none of it felt like his. Every morning, he checked the account. It was like a ritual. The numbers grew more absurd. Balance, 18,300,000 rupees. But beneath it, always dead, 23. And each night, the dreams came, people screaming underwater. Bodies whispering from ceilings. And eyes countless, shifting, watching. He told himself it was stress. Then, one day, he tried to donate. He walked into a children's hospital and offered 5 million rupees for new equipment. The nurse smiled, overjoyed. But the next morning, the hospital had burned down. 7 dead. And his account said, dead, 30. He hadn't even received a receipt. Taha locked himself in for 3 days. He didn't eat. Didn't answer calls. The dreams grew more violent. He started hearing noises while awake like a kettle boiling, except it was inside his ears. He looked at the card again, the one with the teardrop. It pulsed. A slow, red heartbeat. Just once. Taha screamed and threw it in the sink. But when he turned around, it was back on the table. He began drinking, hoping to blur it all. At a bar in Defense, a girl asked his name. He couldn't remember. She touched his wrist, gently. "You're not real," she whispered. He left the bar, shaking. As he opened the door to his car, a man was sitting in the passenger seat, the same stranger from Sadar. "You're growing well," the man said, voice silky. "But you haven't thanked us." "What is this debt?" Taha shouted. "Who's dying? What am I paying with?" The man leaned in. "Memory. Connection. Time. Truth. And sometimes, others." He vanished before Taha could speak again. The next day, Taha called his mother. The number didn't exist. He visited her flat. A different family lived there. No one had ever heard of her. Her photo, once in his wallet, had become a blank square. His hands shook uncontrollably. He tried to call old friends. All numbers were invalid. Facebook showed him as having no connections. Dead, 48. He began to piece it together. For every gain, something real was taken. And not just from him, from the world. Like his existence was becoming untethered. In the middle of the night, he drove to Hawke's Bay and stood near the waves. There was a boat. No engine. Just a figure inside, robed, faceless. Taha walked into the water, unblinking. The boat didn't move. But the tide did. It pulled him under, and he sank, slowly, eyes open. The darkness whispered in a language older than thought. He awoke on his floor, soaked. But he hadn't been outside. His BMW was still dry in the garage. And now, there was a voice inside him. Not external. Not spoken. It said only, one more gain. One more loss. He tried to log into his bank. The app asked for a blood sample. No button. No fingerprint. Just a single prompt. Drip to proceed. Taha smashed his phone against the wall. That night, he heard footsteps in his hallway, soft, wet. He picked up a kitchen knife and opened the door. There was no one there. But the floor was covered in blood. He slipped. Fell hard. Looked up. At the end of the hall stood a child. Eyes stitched shut. Holding Taha's original ID card. It walked backward into the wall, and vanished. When he turned, the teardrop card was in his hand again. Dead, 61. His phone buzzed, though it was in pieces. The screen lit up on its own. Ready for the next deposit. Taha didn't answer. He just laughed. Not from joy. but because the message was right. There was the final balance. Taha no longer slept. Not in any real way. He'd close his eyes, drift into darkness, and wake up with blood on his hands or bruises he couldn't explain. The nightmares had stopped, but that wasn't comfort. It only meant the horror had moved from his dreams into his reality. He stood on the balcony of his luxury apartment, looking down at the city. Karachi buzzed and blinked like it always had. But now, it felt like a simulation. Something false. Something watching. He lit a cigarette. His fifth in an hour. It tasted like ashes and iron. Dead, 72. He couldn't tell what had been taken anymore. He'd walk past people who looked vaguely familiar, but their eyes would glaze over like he was invisible. His reflection lagged behind in mirrors. Shadows clung to walls too long. He no longer knew what day it was. One morning, Taha opened his wardrobe and found it empty except for a single white robe. On the collar, the teardrop symbol shimmered faintly. There was a knock at the door. He opened it without asking. 3 people stood there. All in white robes. All wearing blank porcelain masks. One of them handed him a folded slip of paper. It read, "The final exchange is due. Come." They turned and walked away. Taha didn't hesitate. He followed. They led him to a building he'd never seen before, even though it stood in the heart of the city. No windows. Just a black door with a slit. Inside was darkness. Then a staircase, spiraling down. He descended. Step after step. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Time didn't pass normally down there. Finally, they entered a chamber vast, round, candlelit. At the center stood a throne made of old coins and dried blood. The man from Sadar sat there. No longer in a suit, but in robes stitched with symbols that moved like ink in water. "Welcome back, Taha," he said. "You've done well." "I didn't ask for this," Taha rasped. "I didn't want." "You wanted freedom from suffering," the man interrupted. "You wanted wealth. You wanted meaning. You paid. And we gave. But what did I pay with?" The man pointed to a mirror on the wall. It shimmered, then showed images. His mother crying in a dark place, unseen by anyone. His childhood best friend jumping in front of a train. A beggar he once gave money to burning in a fire. His own face aging rapidly, skin peeling, eyes hollow. "You paid with the world," the man said. "Now, we offer one final trade." Taha's body ached. He wanted to scream. But instead, he whispered. "What trade?" "Freedom. From all of it. The voices. The dead. The suffering. In return. Yourself." The man extended a blade made of obsidian and bone. "Die here. And your story ends. No more pain. Or." He gestured to another path. A black door pulsing with red veins. "Walk through, and take our place. Become what you feared. What you fed." Taha stood still for a long time. The blade gleamed. The door throbbed. He remembered the hospital. The stitched eyes. The voice inside him. The smell of burning. And then, slowly, he turned from the knife. He walked toward the door. The man smiled. The porcelain masks behind him nodded. As he reached the door, his hands began to change. His veins turned black. His heartbeat slowed. His skin faded to gray. He didn't scream. He only whispered, "I am the balance." And the door swallowed him. The chamber emptied. The throne stood waiting. Somewhere, in a flat in Sadar, a young woman stared at her bank app. Balance, Rs 0. Dead.